Hello and welcome to Rainbow History Class, the queer and trans history that you probably don't get in school. My name is Rudy Jean Rigg.
And my name is Hannah. This is my favourite time of the week, recording this episode.
It doesn't matter what time we record. Every time we step into the studio, it kind of like time just washes away.
It's really cozy. It's a really nice, safe space that we have in here.
It is. I feel like I can come in here and whatever is said stays in the room, which is just not true at all because anything we say goes out to literally everyone on the internet.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Now, we've had a good week, you and I. We've been for a couple of, I guess, history fans.
Yes.
We have been transported to Regency England, which I have to say is not my favourite era. I'm more of a Victorian era girly, but nonetheless, we were close enough.
Yeah, I did feel like, okay, so just for context, we were at the Bridgerton and Barrel Netflix experience. Hannah, you were there for what, 4 days?
Yes.
And Hannah was doing some great work with Netflix, doing some more production side stuff. And then I got to live my little creator influencer life for a day, and I was kind of bussed into the rural, is it rural town?
I guess so, except, you know, there's a town called Bowral and it really was chosen because it is identical to, I guess, England in the 1700s. So when we say rural, I think rural Australia to me is very kind of rustic and scrubby and full of bushland, whereas this, I would say, country town.
It was, yeah. It was a country. Yeah, you're so right. It's more
like
of a
hedges. There were hedges and white fences and horses.
Yes.
Whereas rural, I think cows and sheep.
Yeah, I agree. I think Barrel is definitely like a little sort of like, I don't know, it's like they stamped out a little bit of the English countryside and brought it over. Sans all the flowers and whatnot. But there were a lot of bees. Anyway, we were there and it was a pretty wild time. I know for me, we had like we basically got taken into this big estate and there was a lot of activations, a lot of different things going on. Just so we're all on the same page, I did meet Nicola and Luke, and Nicola said that me and my sister look related to her, so just want to get that on record. But
oh, she said that you looked related to her, not related to each other.
yes, she said that my sister looked like the actress that plays Penelope from Bridgerton. So Nicola's character Penelope. Hang on, let me start that again. Nicola said that my sister looked like her on-screen sister.
Ah.
And then she looked at me and then she went, oh, you both look related to me. Like we could be cousins. And I was like, what? Yeah.
We could be cousins.
Yeah. And it was pretty wild. But by the end of the day, okay, so basically what happened was we got taken to an estate, like a different estate. Actually, it was Fairfax, old mate, Fairfax Media, his estate we got taken to, and it was this big, like kind of, it was this salmon coral color, which I was like, okay, interesting choice. But anyway, we got in this group and then the first thing, now this is where I knew it was going downhill for me. First thing was the tour person who was sort of assisting us on this large estate was like, okay, you have the option to go to the Persian rug garden, which was this sort of like Persian carpet rug. I don't know. It was some kind of maybe like art installation. I didn't go. Do you know why I didn't go?
Why?
What was the other option? Just random guess. What do you think the other option they provided?
Giant Connect 4.
No. The other option was, who wants to go to a dog cemetery?
That I would be there.
And I literally was like, a dog cemetery? What? Where? And then everyone looked at me like I was some kind of little freak. And I was like, I don't care. I don't give a fuck. I'm going to the dog cemetery. And then I tried to corral the group because I thought maybe it was one of those sort of instances where it was like one or the other and that we weren't splitting up. So I felt in that moment that I needed to convince everyone that the dog cemetery was the best option. That was not the case.
Rather than like some beautiful like rugs laid out in picturesque landscape.
Exactly.
Like, show me the resting place of dear Maxwell.
Yeah, literally one of them was named Max. But anyway, it was like me, 2 other people, and then like Steph and Sarah, because I think they were like, oh, where's Rudy going? Like, we're going to go follow them. And so that was the first, what would you call it? What's the phrase? knock to my baton. I don't know if that's a phrase.
definitely not a phrase.
And then the second one was there was a lot of mosquitoes. And I have no sense of smell, which is the first thing that you must know about me in the case of this story, because people were spraying themselves with Aerogard, and I wouldn't be able to smell Aerogard, and it doesn't really hang in the air with any kind of like volume, so you can't really feel it when it's in the air. But it was getting wafted very strongly onto me because like a group of like 10 people were all Aerogarding themselves at the same time. So I just feel my sinuses kind of get blocked and my throat getting really thick. And I have like health OCD. And so in this moment, I thought that I was dying.
Yeah, definitely.
I literally thought I was dying. And this sensation just came over me. And I was like, stop, drop, and roll. And so I literally was like, what's happening? And then my sister was like,
you're like, it's Regency, I've got consumption.
Yeah, tuberculosis is taking
black
over.
lung.
Yeah. And then my sister was like, what's going on? What's going on? And then I was like, something's wrong. I can't breathe. I can't breathe. And then Steph, who we work with, and she was kind of helping us like on this day, and she was like, is something wrong? Like really calmly, obviously, because she's got a lovely temperament. And she was like, is something wrong? And I've gone, yes, something's wrong. And then I just fled. I just
fled for the moors.
Yeah, I fled from the group. And then everyone was obviously at this point looking around at me in shock, because I'm kind of like not screaming, but I'm yelling because I feel like I can't breathe and I can't smell anything either. And so I get like surrounded by a few people. Everyone's asking me if I need water. And I'm like, no, I just need to get away from whatever the fuck was happening over there. And it lasted all but a few seconds. But then, of course, when you re-enter the group after an explosive episode like that, everyone's
screaming about a dog cemetery, then just screaming and running away from the dog cemetery that you so wanted everybody to go to.
Exactly. And then everyone's like, oh my gosh, so sorry. Yeah, the smell's really overwhelming. And so then I spent the next like 15 minutes trying to convince people that no, it wasn't the smell, because I can't smell. It was just some weird anxiety episode. I don't know. Like you said, the Regency era I really embodied it. I was really LARPing my way through the day, and it was just a lot. And that's when I realized that like I was pretty tired.
I'd say so. I mean, you had like that's a real scare.
But I did feel like I was like, oh, okay, I'm doing a Hannah, because you often will do that. You just kind of get overwhelmed, good or bad, and you just go, and then you've kind of gone and you're kind of on your way, and I'm just like, oh my God, this is happening.
Okay, that's mainly if I'm in an area that's too close to an airport and I see a plane.
Oh yeah.
But if we stay in Regency era, so like I said, you know, Regency England is not my favorite historical period. It's quite fine. I prefer something grittier and gothier and more oppressed, like the Victorian era. However, we're sitting in the late 1700s, early 1800s. And so being in that era for the best part of a week, I was inspired for this week's episode to do something from that same time frame.
Oh my God.
Absolutely. So 1770s. Now, like I told you, might not be my choice of era in England, but if there's one thing that I love, it's France.
Oh my God. Are we talking about the French Revolution today?
I'm going to say we're going to be talking to the moments edging their way towards the French Revolution.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm excited.
So we are 1770s in France. Okay.
Woo. Okay.
So that's the context. Now,
wait, didn't the French Revolution start in 1778?
Yeah.
Yeah, still got it. Don't worry. I just wanted to fact check myself.
But this is like the 1770s. We are talking about those years leading up to it, where we have one Marie Antoinette in power, and we are dealing with a very disgruntled French people.
Yeah, what do they have? Cahiers de grievances or something?
Yeah, many grievances.
Yeah.
A dossier of grievances.
Well, they did. They literally, was the right letters in?
They did, yeah. So this is what we're dealing with, and we've also got the monarchy. Now, I want to kind of take a couple of turning points here, and just to let you know, there's actually two Marie Antoinettes in this story.
Like the Doctor Who episode or nah?
Nah. Nah,
Okay.
but there is 2 episodes of Marie Antoinette. So we've got people resentful of the monarchy. Now we're early 1770s. When most people think of this period, they think of a certain phrase, let them eat cake. That's right. So this is the era where allegedly Marie Antoinette was, screaming, let them eat cake. Now, the first fact check here is that phrase was actually coined by Jean-Jacques Rousseau, and it's been just frequently attributed to Marie Antoinette, so much so that it's become law. But there's no evidence that she ever said that.
Wait, hang on. So a philosopher took credit for a saying.
He said the saying, and that saying has been attributed instead to Marie Antoinette.
And what's the law?
Well, the idea that kind of Marie Antoinette was so severed and removed from the French people that when they were starving and everybody was saying kind of, Your Highness, the French people are starving. And she says, oh, let them eat cake, as if they would have access to cake. Now, firstly, she most likely never said that. She certainly didn't say it in English. What she would have said, which was the actual phrase that Rousseau coined, was qu'il mange de la brioche.
That's bread.
Right. So brioche is more bread than cake. So I think this is like one of the first things that I want to talk about in the kind of tragic history of Marie Antoinette, is that even if she did say that, she didn't say cake.
She said bread, and they were already making bread with like hay and
look, brioche does have a lot of more luxurious ingredients in it, but she did not say cake. She probably didn't say this at all, but we were talking about let them eat brioche.
Yeah.
Which I have to say is like one step less removed from, the reality of the French people than cake. It's not like she was suggesting that they start eating petit fours.
Can I just get a context check?
Yeah.
So we're in the early 1770s. Previous to this, we had the 7-Year War, right? So France is who do they fight in the 7-Year War? It doesn't matter. They fought someone in the 7-Year War. They were recovering, but they were really sucking at it. And then by the time the 1770s come around, Marie Antoinette has come from what country?
So, yes, this is where we can pick up. So Marie Antoinette is Austrian.
Yes.
And she was married by proxy to the Dauphin of France, Louis.
Yes.
Who would go on to become King Louis.
Yes.
She was married by proxy, which means that she was married before ever having met the young Louis.
They met at the border, didn't they?
Yes, they did. Yeah. And they were married like prior to that. Now, young Marie Antoinette, she was 14 years old when she married the young Louis, Dauphin of France. So they got married. He was 15, but the most famous, I don't know what you would call it, rumors around them, even though it was allegedly true, was that they could not consummate the marriage.
Yes.
And so I think that's just really just awful because, I mean, if you look at, so Marie Antoinette, 14 years old, she had to leave her family in Austria. She was kind of offered up as like a bit of a peace offering to help heal from the war.
Yeah.
And she had to, take the, French version of her name, and she just moved in with this 15-year-old boy, Louis, and they were forced to consummate the marriage at 14 years old. So
that's just not right.
No.
No.
So just so awful on many, many levels for her. Now, throughout this, they were really plagued by this inability to have children. Marie Antoinette sort of tried, and there was just so much speculation, around her at the time. Now, this is where it gets a little bit Bridgerton-y.
Okay.
Because this was the era of gossip pamphlets.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, okay.
Right? Like,
Yeah.
you know, in England, you know, they sort of have the lady whistle down, but this idea that the town's gossip was kind of written on these pamphlets and distributed by these kind of like gossip journalists, you know? And so these pamphlets were actually, I want to say, works of art, because if you look at some of them, they're kind of brilliantly creative. I guess a close similarity to maybe some political cartoons that you see, you know, in the New Yorker or those kind of publications.
Yeah, or like it's like a mix between that and then like scenes. Yeah.
Yeah, it was. It's kind of like a zine, mixed with kind of like political commentary. Now, they were really well done. They were illustrated beautifully, but they were not, I guess, very helpful in terms of like calming a population down. They really stirred up and stoked the flames of the gossip mill.
Yeah.
So poor Marie Antoinette, she has, you know, been lumped with this lot in life. She obviously had immense privilege in terms of her wealth, but she was lonely.
She's still a girl, like she's a baby.
Yeah, she's a little baby, and I think at 14 no amount of wealth and privilege in that sense could kind of offset, you know, the deep hole you would, you know, have inside you from not having like love or family or community. I think, you know, she really had none of this. So it sort of almost doesn't matter how much wealth she had, you know, at 14.
Yeah.
What do you tap into? But, you know, she obviously found a way. She loved clothes. So
yeah, same.
Yeah, me too. So good on her. And she had her close female friends. And this
the pause between you saying she liked clothes. I don't know, she had those female friends as well.
I feel like I'm talking about me at 14. What a girl wants is clothes and close female friends.
Yeah.
And this was the undoing of Marie Antoinette when she, you know, became the queen, because she had this extravagant dress style, which understandably the people felt her wealth was just kind of being rubbed in their faces. This is French people who were starving, and, you know, just to see the opulence put out by Marie Antoinette, you can kind of understand why they hated her. I mean, whenever I see like a politician, you know, do something,
ride a helicopter from
or
Geelong to Melbourne.
Yeah, suggest that they have any sort of money, I'm deeply disgusted.
Yeah. It's pretty wild. Like, I do, you're so right. Maybe that's why they wear so many like ugly suits.
I think that they have to kind of play it down.
God, yeah.
So like, you know, eat the rich. But this was what was happening for the French people. Now, they were kind of looking to really destabilize. They hated Marie Antoinette for these understandable reasons. Though I think now with hindsight, we can maybe empathize a little bit better with, you know, Marie Antoinette at 14, what she might have been going through. So she had a couple of very close friends. One of them was the Princess de Lamballe. And I'm not sure about that pronunciation, so sorry for any of our French listeners. I didn't go to French class last night, so it's all gone.
Oh, no.
But she was one of them. The other one was the Duchess de Polignac.
Mm-hmm.
And both of these women were her very close confidants, and they spent so much time together that, you know, speculation grew around them that they were having kind of romantic relations. Now, in France, at this period of time, it wasn't as repressed. Like, they made fun of, you know, these princesses having this kind of sapphic relationship. It was kind of titillating rather than, you know, something that would get them thrown in jail or anything like that. It certainly was like the topic of a lot of like smut gossip pamphlets. My favorite thing about these pamphlets was how kind of nice they are by modern times. So there's this one pamphlet that, features Marie Antoinette kind of locked in embrace with Yolande de Polignac. And it says, now I'm going to say the English translation underneath. It says, "I only live or breathe for you. A kiss, my angel." And they're kind of, I know they're kind of kissing in this sort of boudoir. But when I look at that, it doesn't look like anything disgusting or super graphic. It's quite romantic, actually, and it's really well drawn.
Hallmark better get a handle on their Valentine's Day card collection for next year, because I think that's going to premiere at number 1.
I know. If I got a card that had me illustrated in a locked embrace that says, I only live or breathe for you, a kiss, my angel.
Like that's like a wedding invitation material.
Literally.
Yeah.
So there's a few others, all ranging from kind of passionate kissing to, I guess, the Queen indulging in lesbian sex.
Yeah.
But all of it's pretty accurate in terms of the depiction of queer sex.
Yeah.
Which I kind of really enjoy. It's not like, you see so many depictions of, intimacy and sex between women these days, and it's completely unrealistic. Obviously, mainstream pornography has really helped cement these incorrect views of V on V sex.
Okay, so can I just check though? These pamphlets are coming out. Is she still underage? Because that would be really concerning.
She was of age for that period.
Okay.
And they were coming out over the years up until the revolution.
Okay.
But, I guess if she's married at 14, she's considered of age.
Yeah, that's still so fucking gross. Like,
I mean,
some man had to sit there and be like, today I am going to draw Marie Antoinette. That sounded kind of Italian, but whatever. And
essentially,
that's so kind of gross.
But is it really more gross than just a country waiting on a 14-year-old girl to consummate a marriage with a boy who she'd never met before? I think at that time it is awful. But even as she was kind of getting older and, these pamphlets were kind of haunting her. Yeah, I just think that they are kind of nice looking, even though they were meant to ridicule her. When we look back on them now, I don't know. And I guess, do we know whether or not Marie Antoinette was, I guess, having a relationship with these women? No.
Yeah.
No, we don't. Of course, Versailles, very big place.
I spent 15 hours there.
Yeah, it's easy to.
By myself. I don't know whether it's not really coming across obviously because you're telling the story, which is great. And I don't actually know that much about Marie Antoinette, but the French Revolution was my special interest for many years. And so when I went to Versailles, I lost my little mind because I never thought I would go there. And then there I was. It was amazing.
It is.
It's huge. And the grounds are crazy. I did not take the direction of anyone there. And I walked from the palace to Marie Antoinette's tiny little village thing that she had I don't know how many kilometers away it was. But I walked the entire way there like a lunatic because I just wanted to well, she probably would have gotten a horse carriage, but whatever.
She definitely didn't walk.
Well, maybe if she was really stressed and heartbroken or something, she would have
maybe
done a long hike. But did these pamphlets they were meant to be slanderous, right? Because they were trying to be kind of look at what she's doing. She's not fit to rule. She's not having sexy times with Louis because she's too busy having gay sex. Is that what they were trying to get across with these pictures?
Yeah.
That's so interesting. I wonder, and of course now I'm just kind of going into my imagination, but it's I wonder because obviously it would have been people who would have been able to read that got these pamphlets, right? So I wonder if there was some people or some women rather that saw these, read these, and then just try to hit her up.
Yes, slid into her
ladies' maids.
French pre-French Revolution DMs.
Yeah, what would that be? Surely she's got some pink pigeons or something.
Yeah, I'd say it'd be flinging a pigeon over the side.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, maybe. I mean, the thing is like they were very well illustrated, so I guess needing to read wasn't super important. But this was high society that they were circulating around as well. But yeah, Marie Antoinette, she was only 37 when she died. So all of this happened in a very kind of like protracted period of time.
Yeah. And she tried to flee like multiple times.
Even just her, two friends, that I think this is where it's really sad, is because they kind of left at different times and so all were killed as part of the revolution. And so she really, I guess, if she did have any happiness or relationships with these two women, it's not that they were there with her until the end. It's quite a tragic story. I think with these pamphlets as well, obviously we're focusing on the ones that depicted her with women because I think that there's probably reasonable evidence to suggest that she did have a romantic friendship with these friends of hers.
Yeah, why not?
And also, why would they not be romantic? That was something that happened. It was very common, and she could have, should she have wanted to. And it's clear that these women, brought her a lot of comfort. So regardless of, whether or not we put an identity onto Marie Antoinette, it's pretty likely that she did have kind of an intimate relationship with these women. There are other pamphlets where, she's kind of doing, I'm going to say lewd, because I'm feeling old worldly, lewd acts with men and, in orgies and those kinds of things. So they were really using sex as a way to debase her.
And also sell pamphlets.
Which is great.
For them, I guess. But like dog act pamphlet bros.
I don't know if they had like journalistic integrity back then, whereas now it's like you can't just be using AI to make pornographic images of public figures just to sell your papers. But I'm sure the media would if they could.
Yeah. Yuck. Ugh. Anyway, moving on.
So that is one pamphlet. Now, the idea of Marie Antoinette being sapphic was so evocative at the time. It started to kind of breed a lesbian secret code.
Oh, yeah.
So when we go into the Victorian period, and this is, throughout England as well, not just France, but you know how in the 1950s we had a friend of Dorothy as a way to kind of identify other queer men?
Yes.
I guess. What we had in the Victorian era or early 20th century was, have you heard the rumors about Marie Antoinette?
Oh, that's hot. That's good. I like that one.
I like that. So after her death, Sapphic women would say, well, have you heard the rumors about Marie Antoinette?
And then what was the reply?
Well, yes, I have. Means, yeah, I am also queer.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
so that was like a nice queer code. And so that's why Marie Antoinette has become a kind of Sapphic symbol. Was because, at that time or since the French Revolution, she really was cemented as this idea of kind of a lesbian.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to use some other words for lesbians in France at that time because we do not have the word lesbian in this period. They called them tribads.
Is that how you pronounce it?
I don't know. Let's have a look.
Tribid.
Tribid. Fine. Tribid. Anyway, all right. And we're back after that pronunciation lookup break.
Wow.
Tribid. At the time, lesbians were often referred to as tribids, which is connected to the word tribbing, which is a unsexy word for a sex act between two people.
Sounds like a fish.
With vaginas. It is like a fish.
What did you catch on the line today? Oh, just some tribbing.
Yuck.
Did you use bait and tackle with that one?
Oh.
Nah, I just went hook, line, and sinker.
For the tribbing. Yeah, absolutely. Now, okay, the reason that I'm bringing that up is because I want to talk to another pamphlet that was doing the rounds at the same time, and it is connected to somebody else in Marie Antoinette's court. Okay, you just yawned and it looked like you were not interested in what I have to say, so I'm going to start that again.
I'm interested. I've literally slept actually a decent amount, so I don't listen.
You know what to do. Okay. Anyway, so another pamphlet was doing the rounds.
Yes.
And it has to do with another woman named Marie Antoinette.
How did that happen?
Look, I think pretty much in France everyone was named Marie.
Or Antoinette.
Or Antoinette.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's just kind of like in Italy everyone was Maria.
Oh,
you know,
okay.
It's just like a kind of Christianized name.
Yeah.
Another Marie Antoinette. So this is Francoise Marie Antoinette Saucerot. All right. And she was also known and probably more well known as Mademoiselle Rocco.
Why do I know that?
Well, because she was well known.
Okay, sure.
Mademoiselle Rocco. Now, she was a singer and an actress, apparently very, very talented, incredible opera singer, and she performed in the court of Marie Antoinette, which is how she became well known. So we've got two, wait for it, sapphic, probably, Marie Antoinettes in Versailles.
Wow.
That's right. Now, she was very, very famous for her voice, but perhaps more famous for fucking a lot of women.
Right.
Right? She had completely unhidden, out in the open, female lovers. She slept with men and women, but was notorious for preferring women. And as a result, she had some allegations thrown at her.
Yeah. Sodomite.
Pretty much, or tribid. Tribid, if you will. So her most notable relationship was with another opera singer named Sophie Arnould, and they had a very, very bad breakup. So like classic sapphic fodder.
Mm-hmm.
So this was really spoken about in the gossip pamphlets because in Marie Antoinette, the Queen's own court was this lesbian drama.
Wow.
Which, you know, I assume Versailles was just like TikTok. So the gossip...
What? Hang on.
Well, just, you know, overrun with sapphic drama, or at least my For You page looks like that.
Oh, I was going to say it sounds more like Married at First Sight or like Love Island.
I mean, in the case of Marie Antoinette, it really was Married at First Sight.
Oh, no. It actually was. And it was, they had a weird ceremony at the border too, didn't they? To like make sure it was all ready to go by the time. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah.
Wow,
No, the first ever season of MAFS was in the 1700s.
Yeah.
At this point, Marie Antoinette, the singer, was accused in a gossip pamphlet of being the leader of the sect of Anandrines.
Anandrines?
Anandrines.
I want to take a guess at what that is.
What do you think that means?
For some reason, I just kind of was like, it's something about going against their femininity or going against. I don't actually know.
You're really close.
Like, is it about like defectors of the feminine or something?
Pretty much. It translates literally in English to without men.
Yeah.
No men.
Yeah, like because
it's sort of probably got the same root as androgyny.
Yeah, because I was going to say like androgen.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's an androgen, anandrin.
Yeah.
Anandrin. So the sect of Anandrins was allegedly in this time, and this is what really gets me going, was a satanic lesbian secret society who worshipped Sappho and hated men.
Where's the Assassin's Creed about this?
I want to know where the sign-up sheet is.
That's amazing.
I know. So now, allegedly, this sect existed.
Okay.
Evidence to prove it is scant.
Well, it means they were doing their job.
Exactly. That's the thing. It's like, you know, it's a secret society, but it probably never existed because there's no evidence of it existing. I'm like, well, that was because it's secret.
Yeah. And also, they said that about aliens, and guess how that turned out?
Yeah.
Right? You just play the long game.
I think there's such an irony in history where there's queer history involved, you know, because people will make accusations at the time of there being this lesbian sect, and then historians will go, well, they were just accusations, like there probably wasn't a lesbian sect. And you're kind of like, well, if there was, you wouldn't know about it.
Yeah.
Because it's secret.
It's supposed to be hidden. Like, should I say it? It's
kind of like when people just, you know, onto aliens. It's this idea of the known universe. And it's like, well, that means there's an unknown universe and the
Yeah.
aliens are probably in that one.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if I particularly agree with that paradigm of thinking, but I agree with the concept that you're bringing to the table. It is true. It's like, yeah, like maybe you're just not looking at the right place, or maybe they just did such a good job that
Of being a secret society.
Yeah. And also, are you a man? Because if you're a man, I wonder why you can't find it.
Yeah, and most historians, newsflash, were.
Yeah.
Documenting these times. However, 1770 onwards was apparently the high point of the sect of Anandrines, and it's said to have existed in Paris. It was founded allegedly by a woman named Thérèse de Fleury, who was the wife of a public prosecutor at the time, but it was led by Françoise Rocourt, Mademoiselle Rocourt, the Marie Antoinette, who sang in the court of the Queen Marie Antoinette. So this was this idea of kind of like a secret Masonic lodge type situation. Now, when we think of secret societies, who comes to mind for you?
This cancelled Netflix show called The Order.
Okay. Okay.
But with secret societies, I think of Houdini. I think of things.
Yeah, the Illuminati.
Oh, sure. I mean, yeah, the Illuminati, Bohemian Grove, QAnon, like the Hermetic Order of the Rose or whatever that is.
Of the Golden Dawn.
Golden Dawn, yeah.
Kind of. So this was the era that the Freemasons really sprung out of.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. So like when we talk about this idea of there being a secret society, there were secret societies at this period in France. This is where a lot of that kind of secret society, sort of quasi-spiritual.
Because the Enlightenment was happening. So, yeah.
Yeah. So this is where things like, you know, the esoteric spirituality were all happening at this period of time. So when we look at this kind of sect of Anandrins, it's, well, potentially like a sapphic version of the Freemasons.
Yeah.
And I think this idea of it being ridiculous, there is an element of, you know, sexism to that because everybody knows about the Freemasons.
Yeah.
But the idea of sapphic women having a similar situation is seen as kind of crazy or gossip or unnecessary drama.
It's like, that's why context is so important, because it's like if you knew the context of the time, they're like, my question would be like, where's the women secret, the secret society for women or like non-women? Like it's not just all men doing this. Like, do you know what I mean?
Totally. Now, there was this idea that these tribades in the secret society took an oath to be the enemies of men, which fair. I took that oath when I was 11 and to avoid them. And this is all through the, I guess, accusations of the gossip pamphlets. There was a small novel published in 1784 of about 100 pages that I guess suggested that this sect worshipped the occult and did other occult activities. Again, not that crazy considering things like the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn and the idea of the occult was coming out of this new spirituality and the rise of kind of satanic sects or Satanism as a religious kind of doctrine did exist.
I feel like that's the thing. It's like when you look at and I don't know much about this, but I'm just going like, surely, right? So this is where I'm coming from. When you have like people like, you know, worshipping one god or one thing, you think everyone's just going to either worship that thing or nothing. Like clearly there's going to be other things that people are like getting into in terms of spirituality and religion. And it's like rituals and things like that we've always been interested and fascinated and had like a need for rituals in terms of when it comes to spirituality and religion. So it's like
totally. And I think the idea, you know, of these secret societies is a little polarizing because there is a sense of maybe they existed or maybe they were a projection of kind of male desire. I mean, there is obviously something that dudes have with lesbians. That's why there's so much lesbian porn on the internet.
Yeah.
This idea that women are doing things behind closed doors without them seems to excite them. And so I am like obviously aware that that could be playing into this sect. It could have probably just been like some chicks hanging out.
Well, literally, that's what I'm thinking. I'm like, why? I mean, this is the thing again through the kind of cis male lens. It's like, why is it always about sex? You know?
They're obviously having mad chats too.
Yeah.
And I think this idea as well, like there was this idea that they worshipped Sappho, and
Yeah.
I mean, I worship Sappho. However, when we look at these periods of time, it's completely not unlikely that they would have worshipped Sappho, because as we've seen, this idea of fascinations with the classics.
Yeah.
When we look at through history and periods of time where maybe there was sexual liberation, or it was, relatively easier to be queer at a time, often that means is there's been a bit of a revival of like the classics. And so we're going back to kind of ancient Greece and ancient Rome, and looking to them, I guess, readjust our modern ethos. So yeah, absolutely. Like, there were, if you look at like Oscar Wilde, he really loved like the Greek philosophers.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, like that's what the Enlightenment was all about. It was like about looking at like what had kind of stood as like the foundation of vices, virtues, morals, and ethics, and all that, and how we look at art and beauty and all of that, and then like all of the classics, and then going, are we keeping it or are we throwing it away? Like, does it spark joy?
It's the Marie Kondoing of culture.
Like literally, that was like the Enlightenment. So yeah, it makes total sense.
So I think that's this idea that when people say, oh, it's ridiculous, there are not these occultist like lesbians who swear off men and worship Sappho. It's really not that far-fetched for the time, and also just really not that far-fetched for a lesbian. Like, this sounds like what I do in my personal time.
Yeah.
But I think there's this idea of the secret Anandran sects have continued to exist throughout time, because obviously if we go back to Marie Antoinette, we have, her name as a symbol for lesbianism. Mademoiselle Raucourt as well became a symbol or a sort of shorthand for sapphic relationships. But even if we go back, I want to connect it to something that happened in the 20th century, which happened in Hollywood with a group of actresses in the 1930s. So Marlene Dietrich, Joan Crawford, even Edith Piaf was a member of this. They called themselves the Sewing Circle.
Yeah.
Right. And the Sewing Circle was a bit of a euphemism, but it was a secret sort of society group of women in Hollywood who were sapphic, had queer relationships with each other, and they did so kind of in the open, but also hidden away. It was the era of morality clauses among Hollywood actresses. So they needed to do all of these things undercover. And there was a fascination, titillation around these women in the 1930s. And it's very similar to the idea of like this Anandran sect. So I think there have and will continue to be these secret societies of sapphic women who swear off men and maybe worship the occult and Sappho. And I really think that just sounds like a good time.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like they had a great friendship. Like they kind of, because that's the thing, right? Because it's like, okay, regardless of what they were doing, like when they were spending time together, it's like, it must have been hard to like have friends or feel like you can connect with people. So to have a group like this was probably really beneficial to like their well-being. Like I don't mean to like kind of take that direction with it, but it's true. It's like when you feel connected and you feel a part of something, no matter what it is, like I think that's really important. And that's why I'm always fascinated with like secret societies and groups and things, especially when they're like made for like minority groups or people with like niche interests. I'm like, no, these are like literally the lifeblood for some of these people.
100%. And if you look at, there's so many similarities between, Hollywood and monarchies or women in monarchies throughout history, is this idea that so much of their life was dictated for them. So, in Hollywood, if you were, you needed to kind of walk this line in the 1930s where you were sexy enough to be, to make people swoon, to be a sex symbol, but not so much that you alienated, your conservative base or society. So you didn't want to kind of go too far. You wanted to be married sometimes because that proved that you were a good woman, but not too married to suggest that you were off the market.
Oh my God.
And so again, if you were queer, in 1930s Hollywood, you would probably be engaged in a lavender marriage. So I guess there is this idea that these women, they have so many men in their lives making decisions for them. And so often they were mistreated in, so many ways by society, by the men in their lives. And so all they had were their female friends. And so we see it time and time again. You look at someone like Whitney Houston, for example, who had a relationship with Robin, her kind of closest friend and lover. And I think that's where you get the same thing, the tragic fall of a woman with Edith Piaf, who, also had sapphic relationships. So I think when you look back at Marie Antoinette, absolutely there's so many similarities. So we just see heaps more sects of androgynes throughout history. And now I'm looking to start my own. Yeah, absolutely. So the rainbow, if you're interested in becoming a member of the Rainbow History class sect of androgynes, hit us up. Put us, just let us know. We'll put a sign-up sheet in our link in bio.
Oh, that's so wild. I think because that's the thing, in all the time I spent being so interested in the French Revolution and Marie Antoinette and Louis and all of that. Not once, and this is I'm going back like 10 or so years now, but like not once did anyone's queerness come up. I think the only time it came up was with Robespierre for some unforsaken reason. And I was like, yeah, he was a dog, but I don't know whether he's queer, but I don't know. Maybe
it's a great way to kind of bring someone down.
Yeah, literally.
Is to accuse them of being queer, I guess. Yeah. And that's where you get, same thing with Marie Antoinette. Yeah. She's a lesbian. That was meant as an insult, but also maybe.
I mean, yeah, well, that's the thing. But I think it's so interesting, and I think it really does. And I love, this is the thing, right? And this is why I love not everything is gay, but there's gay in everything. Because I feel like when you look at queerness or when you look at intersectionality of any kind, when it's forgotten about in things like history, it always, like, for me, it's always brings such a liveliness and a kind of more holistic idea of what was going on, because those things play such a huge part in people's lives and their decisions. And there are other stories, like I want to tell the story of Kitty Genovese, like, because I think that's super interesting. So maybe that'll be like an episode soon. But like, I just think that it brings such a new angle that is really important to like understanding. And also I feel like it makes them more memorable because it often makes the stories more relatable.
I think so, because I think, one thing about human nature is that we do try and make the best out of a situation. And when we have these narratives thrust upon women in particular, there's these tropes of, women throughout history being sad or having a horrible time. And so therefore women today should be so grateful that we have what we have. We shouldn't demand more because look how far we've come and look how terrible things were in the past. And I just want to combat that, because at the end of the day, yes, concrete rights have been given to women, but at the same time, if you look at the state of our lives and what we have to contend with, women today are dealing with, violence and, all sorts of things in a way that they also were dealing with back throughout history. And I think there's this idea that history was bad, today is good.
What? Yeah.
Let's be grateful, when actually a thing that's human about us all is that we do try and find connections with other people, and we try and live our lives in a way that seems worthwhile and that has meaning to it. And I think giving people in history like Marie Antoinette, you know, and I'm not going to like yas Queen Marie Antoinette, but I think we can say that, you know, she had an inner world, she had an inner life, she had, you know, wants and desires and loves and friendships and all of these things that make her life, you know, of her short life of 37 years worthwhile. And I think we should be giving, you know, women throughout history a bit of that lens.
Yeah.
Because I think that's the thing. Otherwise, this canon of time as told by often white male historians would just have her as this girl who was unable to bear children when she should have been, and then was miserable and then had her head cut off.
Yeah.
Which, you know.
That sucks.
That sucks.
That really sucks. That's the thing I feel like is, you know, there's nothing, I think we should all want more for ourselves. But I think the thing when people get defensive about that is because they think that they're going to have something taken away from them. And I'm like, no, like you can want more too. But to get more, you can't take from someone else because then no one wins. And so I think that's, why I have like, empathy for people. Like pretty much, I don't know. Obviously, people do really awful things, and I'm not being like, oh, you know, like someone who committed genocide deserves empathy. But on some level, like we are all human, and I think when it comes to like women, pretty much anyone that's not a cis white man in history, I'm like, no, I really wanted more for you. Like you deserved a better life.
Yeah.
Unless you committed an atrocity, and then
you're pretty much fine.
And then
deal with it.
You can fucking suffer, to be honest.
Cop it.
But
But I think, you know, I think they're looking at like history through the lens of justice is always a recipe for dissatisfaction. But I think we can hopefully, through chatting about them, flesh out some of those minority characters in life's grand story a little more.
Yeah. Well, thank you for taking me through that. I really enjoyed that. Even though I yawned and you were like, oh my God, I'm boring you. I'm like, no, I'm relaxed.
Well, no, thank you. I know you like the French Revolution. So that was really good. And I think, you know, just to cap off a week where we've been running around in our, you know, 18th century best, this was a good story to tell. But absolutely, if you liked this episode, please chuck us a review on Spotify. We really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And also on Apple Podcasts as well. I check out Apple Podcasts too now. I'm across all the apps as I have to be. But if you're just listening to this because we, you know, stumbled into your life, we are also on Instagram and TikTok, and where else are we on Patreon as well. Come check us over there. We do have some free stuff on Patreon, so you don't have to pay to be on our Patreon. So just come over anyway. Have we got anything coming up, Hannah?
No, we don't. Just, you know, more episodes. But we've kind of settled into our groove now of this podcast. So we'd love to hear your thoughts. If you want to DM us and let us know what you're loving or what you want us to cover.
Thanks always for listening, and we look forward to being part of your week again soon.
And to leave you with that thing that we always say, not everything is gay, but there is gay in everything, including the Palace of Versailles.